Your mother's prescription is still open on the kitchen table when your teenager messages to say they've missed the bus again. You're already switching between medication dates and arranging a lift home without finishing either thought. You say yes, you can handle both. You tell them dinner is nearly done, even as your shoulders pinch and your breath stalls. Your body is preparing for consequences nobody has mentioned yet. The microwave beeps behind the ringing phone, and that ordinary detail suddenly carries far too much information. You're measuring what can be said, what must be hidden, and how quickly control might slip. Your jaw tightens. Pressure gathers behind your eyes. But the reaction stays almost invisible, because showing alarm would only create another problem on top of the one already unfolding. You answer the message, circle the dosage, and turn the hob down. Continuing the practical task feels more manageable than admitting what the moment has stirred up. Usefulness gives your hands something to do while the rest of you tries not to react. Afterwards, you replay which detail you may have forgotten while dealing with the other emergency. You check the exact wording of your texts and the pause before the reply, searching for a version of yourself who could have kept everything steadier. By 1 in the morning, uncertainty has become evidence against you. You analyze the timeline as if better manners or one more useful sentence could have rewritten another person's limits. You defend their side and prosecute your own. The only person never placed under examination is the one whose behavior made the whole calculation necessary in the first place. You understand the facts, yet the reflex arrives before the understanding. Two people needing you at once becomes a practical emergency, an urgent problem to be solved rather than an ordinary human moment. Being loved can feel like being permanently on call. A small exchange lands somewhere older than the room, leaving you with a reaction that seems excessive until the history underneath it begins to come into view. At work, you take a care home call between meetings and return before anyone notices the chair was empty. You're checking whether being easy to deal with or less visible will stop the atmosphere from changing around everyone else. In relationships, you discuss logistics so efficiently that neither of you mentions being frightened or tired. Another person's disappointment feels like a test you must pass before affection becomes uncertain or expensive. Alone at home, you sort school forms beside hospital letters while the washing machine finishes another load. The quiet feels like an interval in which you have surely forgotten an obligation that nobody else can see. You cancel drinks with a vague excuse because the full explanation would require a family organization chart. You use competence to stay connected without exposing the part of you that expects closeness to create work. The cost is constant calculation. Who is most vulnerable? Which deadline is real? What problem will grow if ignored? You edit your own reaction before you've even decided whether it was reasonable. You delete the honest sentence and replace it with a color-coded list. People end up knowing your usefulness better than your inner life, simply because you've been giving them the safer version for years. People call you capable, organized, or dependable. These labels treat a trained adaptation as a fixed character trait, which means nobody has to ask what it actually cost you. You schedule your own dentist appointment as though you're requesting planning permission from 3 separate departments. It's a precise example of how much effort goes into making your private strain look like the easiest thing happening in the room. The role leaves you knackered, but stepping out of it feels worse. Exhaustion is familiar. Receiving, waiting, or being visibly unsure asks you to tolerate a kind of exposure you've never practiced. By midlife, this becomes the version of you other people plan around, the emergency contact whose phone never feels decorative. A protective method has become a reputation everyone appreciates, and very few think to question. For some, the pattern begins in a home where care was expressed through doing, and family problems were handled inside the family. In those rooms, needing less felt like the safest available contribution. You noticed that adult comfort was unreliable or badly timed. Self-containment began as a practical response to a crowded room before it was ever a personality choice. The child adapts by noticing what needs doing and stepping in before being asked. Measuring worth through usefulness reduces friction and earns a little predictability, even if it leaves fear with nowhere public to go. Then the method gets rewarded. Teachers praise the responsibility. Relatives trust you with younger children. Every relieved adult confirms that the quiet, capable version is the one most welcome. Repeated often enough, the lesson becomes automatic. Your own needs move to the bottom of the queue because nobody else is immediately endangered. Psychologists may describe this pattern as parentification. A child takes on adult responsibility early, then organizes other people's safety long after childhood has ended. Usefulness feels immediate and trustworthy, while sharing responsibility can feel slow and risky. It is like being made the household switchboard young, then discovering every new generation still routes its urgent calls through the same desk. The mechanism was calibrated using real experience, but it keeps applying the old setting to people and choices that are entirely different. That old setting activates when a parent falls or a child struggles. The present moment gets interpreted through a rule written earlier, before the adult part of you has considered what is actually happening. Present reality says several adults could share this responsibility, but the older lesson says if you loosen your grip, the people you love will pay for it. The older lesson speaks first because it has been rehearsed for longer. You learned to keep vulnerable people steady when family care had no spare system around it. Everyone calls you the absolute center of the family, yet the center is the one place nobody thinks to support from underneath.